No Planning Commission of March
Recording in
11th,
progress.
2025. I hope you will join us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Fung,
Present.
Commissioner Lindskog, absent. Commissioner Scharf,
Here.
Vice Chair Kasolcharan,
Present.
Chair Rao.
Present. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the February 25th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes. Do we have any comments from the public for the approval of the minutes? If you might take a minute to read the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'd be happy to second the motion.
We need to do public comment. We have no speakers.
Thank you. Do we have public comments on the approval of the minutes?
No. I do not see public comment on the approval of the minutes.
Very good. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Let's vote on the approval of the minutes.
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
You had already, but.
Oh, I didn't hear it seconded.
I'll second it.
Second.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, let's vote. Thank you.
We can just do a voice vote.
Let's do a voice vote.
Commissioner Fung,
Aye.
Commissioner Scharf,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kasolcharan,
Aye.
Chair Rao.
Aye.
The motion passes with Commissioner Lindskog absent.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is postponements. Madam City Clerk, do we have any postponements?
We have no postponements.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the Commission on any matter within the jurisdiction of the Commission and not on the agenda. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. In most cases, state law will prohibit the Commission from making any decisions with respect to a matter not on the agenda. Madam City Clerk, do we have any oral comments?
Yes, we have 3 speakers in person and no hands raised on Zoom. Our first speaker is Diana Ferris.
Welcome, Diana.
Hello, I'm Diana Ferris, and I'm a Bay Area native. I've actually lived in Cupertino for over 5 years, and last year I moved into Westport Senior Apartments. In 2024, I was awarded Resident of the Year for community service at the apartments. And what I want to talk about today is the parking issue that we have and the elimination of the parking garage of the Westport Assisted Living. I read the letter recently. I didn't know about it until just recent, like the last month, and saw that they were quoting AB 2097 as a reason to eliminate the garage, saying that we were within half a mile of major transportation, which I would suggest it's not major transportation. I know that I'm not a lawyer, but I looked at the law and determined that it said that we had to have bus stops that run every 15 minutes. I looked at the bus schedule and saw that they mostly run every half an hour to 60 minutes. And so I don't think that it qualifies for AB 2097 at all. The other thing I would say is that there is an exception that is apparently not in use for people who are senior or disabled. And I'm not sure how you can discriminate against a protected class like that, but we as seniors and the disabled are more in need of our cars. Apparently they said seniors don't drive. Well, we're 60, not 90, and we all drive. Right now, our Westport Senior Apartment garage was eliminated because the builder wanted to make sure their building was completed in time to get tax incentives from the state. So they eliminated the garage and said our parking would be provided by the assisted living garage. Right now we have 48 units, some of them 2 people in each unit. We have 9 parking spaces. We have 1 EV space, 1 EV and handicap space, and 1 handicap space. So a total of 12 parking spots for 48 units. This is a unique situation. There's no parking on Stevens Creek. Memorial Park is on the other side of us. There's no parking there. The freeway is on the other side of us, no parking there. And the only parking on Mary Street says there's no overnight parking. So we literally come home at night and have nowhere to park. So we end up parking in areas that are not meant for parking. We risk getting towed, and there's really no alternative. We have no options. And so them eliminating our parking at this point is a very negative effect.
Thank you,
on the
Diana.
residents. Thank you.
Oh, can I ask staff a question? When is this coming to planning now?
It hasn't been scheduled yet, but as soon as it is, it will be with the commission. We were hoping that it would be heard soon.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
supposed to be on the schedule tonight. They postponed it from February. And so we don't get any notices despite even signing up for it. I still don't get any notices on email or anything, so we just have to investigate to find when it's happening. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Jennifer Griffin, and I was going to talk tonight about the objective standards. I'm very scared about these because it seems to be we're going down the road eventually because of the housing element certification. Someone said that we're supposed to be throwing out all of our design standards and having objective standards, and I'm not impressed, and I want to go back to LOS, trash VMT, and I'm ready to just, I'm tired of this whole dog and pony show that we're getting from Sacramento, but I won't go into that. As spoken previously, Westport is having a big problem. Okay, my niece was in college when Westport, the Oaks, first came up. She is now married, 29, and having a baby, and just closed on a house in Portland and is moving into it. That's been 9 years. Westport has been dragging on for years. They've got 2 parts of it finished. If you remember, this has condoized lots. It's one of the first ones in the city. And my mother-in-law passed away from Alzheimer's in January. She was in Alzheimer care for 6 months. The family was paying $8,100 per month out of pocket. Yes, we had her social, but she was a single woman. But it was a big financial commitment. We had 24/7 access to that facility, and a lot of times my brother-in-law got calls at 2 a.m. and the family went over to deal with medical issues. And I really resent the fact that people in Cupertino and this area are being robbed of their money to have to be shelling out that much money. It's like a pariah. It's like a leper. They're using our money, and they're saying that we don't have parking spaces. Give me a break. Where else are you paying $8,000 a month and not having a parking space? That is so cheap and trivial. It's insulting. Yes, I have gout. I can't walk very far. And believe me, somebody using that bill is a complete AB 2097. That is a cop-out. That's against handicapped people, and it ought to be taken and reviewed by the law. We need those parking. And yeah, I just found out that De Anza dropped $66 million on an apartment complex across the street. Where are their students supposed to park? Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rhoda Fry. Welcome, Rhoda.
Welcome, Rhoda.
Hi, good evening. The apartments over at the old Oak Shopping Center, they need to have an interim parking solution yesterday and a permanent parking solution on the map. It's just not acceptable. I've been hearing this going on for a long time, wasn't planning on talking about it, but seeing the first speaker, I want to concur heartily on that issue. The other reason I'm here today is to talk a little bit about the acquisition of Foothill De Anza College of a $67 million apartment complex on McClellan Road. It's a terrace apartments, 94 units, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, about 850 square feet, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 1150 square feet. So what does Cupertino have to do with this? So the college district intends to have this be affordable housing for students, and also it seems like there's a potential staff component as well. They didn't talk about that in their CEQA exemption document, but elsewhere they did, so it could be both. But if they're changing the use of that place and if making it affordable, and my guess would be kind of increasing the number of people per unit, how can we in Cupertino get some RENA credit for that? So my ask to Planning Commission today is to ask the staff to really work hard in seeing if we can get some of those RENA numbers. The other thing I'd like to see is Cupertino to work on getting RENA credit for some of these elder care units, because we don't get credit for those. And that would help us with our RENA numbers as well. But especially for the affordable, this is important. The other parts of this is that they do intend to allow the residents there to keep their fulfill their 12 months leases. They also said they're going to allow, I think it was up to 120 days, or maybe they had 120 days in there. But I don't think the residents have been notified yet. And that apartment complex is pretty affordable compared to what else is in the area. So the other closest one is a lot more money, and I don't remember the name. It's the one that's across from De Anza College on Stevens Creek and Mary, that area. Anyway, that area. So I'm really concerned about the students in the tri-school area and how that would affect families. So if there's anything the city can do to kind of work with De Anza to help
Thank
our
you, Rhoda.
residents. Thank you.
Thank you,
We
Rhoda.
have no more speaker cards and no hands raised on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. With that, we will
Excuse me,
close.
Chair. I do notice there's a hand. Is there a hand on?
Chair, I can, there is a Lisa with her hand raised as a participant on Zoom.
Can we call on Lisa if you can unmute her?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
There you
Yes,
go.
we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank
Welcome,
you,
Lisa.
Attorney Wu and Pew. Thank you very much. Because I couldn't scream and yell, yes, I raised my hand. So I would like to thank Diana, who I do not know, for her comments on Westport and the additional comments from other speakers. I am really, I guess I can't say I'm shocked, but I'm disgusted by what continues to go on with developers in our and other communities, the bait and switch over and over and over again. And it's getting really unpalatable. Well, it has been for a while, but this is ridiculous. And on that note, just because this is, I can tell you that I've just discovered that Portal Plaza on Stevens Creek has been sold. And I'm guessing that is why that Joanne Fabric store went from being their top sales store and being told they would not be one that was going to be closed, then suddenly being told they were going to be closed. And now I know why. Property's been purchased, and not only that, it's been purchased by an entity in Los Altos who has estates in their name. So my guess is, once again, we are going to lose much needed retail space in this city to housing. Of course, that's an assumption, but I gather anyone here would agree with me. This has got to stop. And I'm not sure what you can do about it, but please be very aware and see what you may be able to do to keep this from happening. We can't have all of these more housing units and fewer retail opportunities than we already have with the population that's here. And then to expect everyone to walk and bike everywhere when there's nowhere here to shop anymore. You know, it's and our very limited amount of funds for the city being spent on projects for biking when that's not realistic and will get less and less realistic. There has to be some kind of resetting the situation. And I know it's very complicated, but there are discussions that need to be had with your community in workshops, at those round tables, with ideas and the ability to voice their opinions. Lastly, I did send you a picture of a balcony that's being built that looks suspiciously like it shouldn't be approved because of the way it wraps around the home. And I've asked you to just keep it in mind when the balcony discussion
Thank
comes
you,
up.
Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Madam City Clerk, any other oral comments on the Zoom?
I see no hands raised on Zoom, Chair.
Thank you. With that, we will close the oral communications. I believe there are no items on consent calendar. Is that right?
There are no items, Chair.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 2, which is the public hearing for the hillside exception to consider the construction of a new single-family residence on a vacant hillside property with cumulative disturbance exceeding 500 square feet on slopes greater than or equal to 30%. The application number is EXC 2023-001, and the applicants are Lei and Zhang. The location is 22346 Ragnart Road. Would we have a staff report?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commission. I do have here with me Emi Sugiyama, who's been working very hard on this project, and she will be presenting the staff report for you tonight. After the staff report, I believe the applicant is here as well, and they may have a short presentation as well, after which we'll be happy to take questions from the Commission.
And before we start with the staff report, can I ask the commissioners if you have any ex parte disclosures? If anybody has met with the applicant or any other disclosures to share?
I drove past the site today, but I did not speak with the owner.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kusal Sharon. I can state that I have not met with the applicants, but I did drive past the property under discussion today. I had a chance to park and walk the neighborhood, and had no chance to meet with any of the neighbors. Okay, very good. If there's no other ex parte disclosures, we can open the public hearing, and we'll look to hear from staff. Thank you, Emi.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Emi Sugiyama, Planning Staff, here today to discuss this hillside exception request. The property is located off of Ragnart Road on a vacant lot, which is accessed by a private road that branches off of Ragnart. It is within the Residential Hillside or RHS zoning district. This lot was created as part of a 1979 subdivision known as Regnart Ridge. It created 23 residential lots and 1 open space lot. The majority of the lots within the subdivision all of the lots in the subdivision have been developed except for this one. And the majority of those that have been developed were developed in the 1970s and late 80s when a hillside exception was not a requirement. However, all of the lots do have slopes exceeding 30%. The applicant is proposing a 6,436 square foot residence. It does already meet the other requirements of the RHS zoning district as outlined in this table and as identified in the staff report. Here you can see the proposed site plan for the development. The project is accessed by a private road to the east. There is the proposal for 2 trees to be removed. These are not protected pine trees. And that will accommodate the development of the residence shown here in blue, which has been sited in the most flat area adjacent to the private road, where a driveway can access it on a lower portion of the site. The applicant also is proposing a septic system shown here in yellow, and then a small flat yard area in the front setback shown here in green. As you can see, the majority of the disturbance will occur behind the residence, as required for the septic system with associated leach field. This requires a hillside exception for the grading of more than 500 square feet on slopes exceeding 30%. The entire site average is about 45% sloped, with the majority of the developable area about 36% sloped. There are no additional exceptions to the RHS standards being proposed today. The project proposes a total of 1,254 cubic yards of cut and fill. This is less than the allowable 2,500 cubic yards, and the majority of it is associated with the foundation cut for the residence. The project is within the city's slope instability geologic hazard area, which is noted to have landslides. A geologic and geotechnical report were prepared by the applicant and peer-reviewed by the city's consulting geologist, and they found there was no evidence of any landslides within the development area, and the geological recommendations have been incorporated into the conditions of approval and resolution for this project. The project was also reviewed by the Santa Clara County Fire Department. They have required that a 2-foot expansion of the roadway just in front of the property take place, as well as an expansion and improvement of an existing turnaround at the end of the private road take place. And this expansion is on a neighboring property. That neighbor and the HOA have both provided consent for work to begin on there. Here you can see the proposed materials and a general elevation of the project. Again, this follows the slope of the existing lot. And so from the road itself, you'll see 1 story for the majority of that lot, and then 2 stories where you see a garage, and the 2nd story on top. This meets the requirements for paint reflectivity, fence materials, as well as the other materials that are provided. And again, it does meet all of the other RHS design requirements. I'll reiterate that the applicant is proposing the removal of 2 non-protected trees. They are also proposing 2 additional oak trees be planted, as well as 3 redbuds. And in general, they will be re-landscaping the graded areas to match the existing contours and grade of that lot, with about 14,500 square feet of landscaping proposed. With that, staff is recommending that your commission adopt the proposed draft resolution as outlined in attachment 1 to find the project exempt from CEQA and to approve the hillside exception EXC 2023-001. The applicants are both here in case you do have any additional questions.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Are there any clarifying questions from commissioners at this time?
Yes, I had one clarifying question. So I did notice in the presentation it mentioned an iron fence, but then in the blueprint, there's a steel fence going around. And so I was kind of curious whether those were one and the same, the one that goes around the perimeter of the house, and if it's a steel fence, is it going to be painted over with, sort of a similar color that's what's shown in the presentation?
Right, so we have actually design requirements for fences now, which include that they do need to be a matching color and reflectivity as we would usually see in the hillside. But I believe in this case they're being used interchangeably.
Thank you.
Other clarifying questions from commissioners? I'd like to ask a couple of clarifying questions to the staff. Would you be able to clarify when the geotechnical reports were prepared?
Absolutely. So originally, the geotechnical report and geologic report was prepared in 2019. It was then reviewed by our city's consulting geologist in 2020. Supplemental report was prepared in January of 2021, and that was reviewed and approved by our consulting geologist in December of 2021. And then just as a note to that, we do have a condition which requires that all of the plans for building permits be reviewed by a geologist, and that will require them to produce a supplemental report similar to what they had before to confirm that there have been no incidences within the area and that it will meet current building requirements.
And that supplement would be at the time of the building permit application?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And can the staff clarify if the geotech reports need to be refreshed, given these were prepared in 2019 and then peer-reviewed in 2020, and it's been about 5 years or 6 years?
Right, based on the advisement and re-review of our consulting geologists, these do not need to be refreshed or provided as new at this time. Again, they will provide them at the time of building permits to ensure that they meet those building codes.
Okay, very good. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, if no other clarifying questions, would we hear from the applicant if they have a presentation or would like to say anything? Okay. No presentation from the applicants. At this time, do we have discussion from commissioners? Well, at this point, let's open it up for public comments. If there's any public comments from members of the public on this agenda item.
I have one speaker card in person, Jennifer Griffin.
Hi. Looks like this was a nice presentation. It looks like a nice home. I'm familiar with the Regnart Road projects coming in. I've been coming to meetings at Cupertino since 2003. I'm familiar with the RHS area. It looks like a nice home, and I'm glad that they're planting 2 more oaks. I'm a bit concerned about the septic tank situation. My family home where I grew up was in the county, and we did have septic tank. It had to be abandoned at some point. We actually hooked up with sewer, but my mother's home was on an older home, and she had to actually replace and relocate the septic site, the septic field. Septic fields cannot be reused. I'm a bit concerned about this project if they are having to use a slope area this big to get their septic tank in. I'm assuming that this house has a good 100-year plus lifespan on it. Hopefully the family and their descendants will be there the whole time. But the septic tanks are not forever. I think that it's important that we think about, rather than just permitting everything and then, I'm sorry, this is the way the state is going. It's like, let's permit everything, no reflection on this home, but we need to think ahead for sustainability. If we're having to make this much effort to put in a septic tank now, what happens 20 to 30 years down the road? There are 2 alternatives. They will have to put in another septic tank somewhere on the property, or else the entire road goes to sewer. What is the future of Regnart Road? I am familiar with sewer lines being run up property. My father owned several lots in Santa Cruz where my grandparents lived, and there was sewer that was brought up from one of the roads. I know how it is installed. It is a big mess, but it's what a lot of modern homes have. Have you all explored the issue of eventually having Regnart Road have dedicated sewer, probably from down at the very bottom, go up every single homeowner? My father had to pay $5,000 when we went to sewer when I was 10 years old. And I think that we need, if we're going to be building this much new housing in Cupertino, we need to think about what are our utilities? How do we get our water? How do we deal with waste? Is there another alternative? It might help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Madam City Clerk, are there other public comments on this agenda item?
We have no speakers in person and no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. So at this point in time, I'd like to ask if the applicant would like to respond to the public comments or have any other additional comments you would like to add. Okay, very good. Thank you. So with that, then we will close the public hearing for this agenda item. And at this point, for the purpose of discussion, may we have a motion from commissioners to move the discussion forward?
Sure. I'll move that we adopt this proposal as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Fung. Thank you, Vice Chair Solcheron. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. At this point, I'd like to invite commissioners, if you have any comments, discussions, open it up for discussions. Would like to go first? Commissioner Scharf.
So I'm wondering, how many hillside exceptions have we had in the past number of years since it's been required? Has any ever been?
21 since 2000, I'm told.
21. Have any of them ever been rejected?
I don't believe we've gone down to that level of detail, but I've been here for 21 years. I have not seen a single hillside exception being rejected. But
so
I haven't worked on all of them.
So this is an average slope of 45 or 40?
Correct.
So what slope would it be before it was rejected?
I can
80,
tell
60?
you that in this subdivision, there was a lot with a 60% average slope that was approved for development.
With the hillside exception? Yeah.
Just with
Or
the building,
before.
actually before, but with a building, but it complied with our requirements.
Okay.
Commissioner Scharf, would you like to clarify your question on hillside exceptions? Did you mean to ask about new construction of properties versus, for example, addition of patios?
Right, new construction since we had the requirement for a hillside exception. I'm just wondering, it seems like there's a reason why we don't want these projects on steep hillsides. There's landslides, there's other issues. So I'm just wondering, why we keep allowing them. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Scharf. And would staff like to clarify on that question about new
I do
property
have a
development?
couple of clarifications. One, that property with the 60% slope that I talked about did get a hillside exception, and the 21 exceptions are specifically for development on slopes greater than 30%. Aside from that, there are a lot other hillside exceptions in general that was not for this specific purpose.
And so just to clarify, we are saying there were a total of 21 hillside exceptions for development of new properties. And would staff be able to clarify if there have been any hillside exceptions for development of new properties on Regnart Road in this area?
Yeah, I'll clarify that. There have been 2 on the adjacent lots, and so what I can actually show here where those are located and give you some more information if you're looking for that. Else, I'd be happy to just kind of let you know that there have been 2 within this subdivision. Again, the majority of the others were developed in 1989 and before that, when the hillside ordinance was not in place.
Thank you. And for the 2 where you saying you had, more details on those? Were they in the immediate
Yeah, let me-
vicinity or?
Let me go ahead and pull that up really quickly.
Thank you.
There we go. So the two with the stars on them on this slide, those are the two that had a hillside exception that was approved. Right here is the one that was 60% overall. Again, they do usually have a more flat area, similar to this one that had a more flat area than the overall slope. And then the one next to it, I believe, had a similar 40 or 45% slope as well. These, I will note that they also were on the ridgeline, which you can see is noted here in yellow. And that is another reason that they would have required a hillside exception.
And I will also note, if you look at the aerial, the development was kind of at the top of that slope because that was the flattest part for the development of those properties.
Thank you. Can staff comment from the geotech reports? And again, to clarify, do we have the civil engineer or the geotech engineer present?
No, we do not.
Okay. Would staff be able to clarify from the geotech report? I believe there were 4 landslides at the property. Would you be able to clarify on the 4 landslides and the timelines, perhaps?
Yeah, so in 2019, when the initial report was created, there were 4 potential landslides identified. What that means is that there's enough information just based on kind of the topographic overview to presume that maybe a landslide had occurred. Now, when they went and did actual borings and they tested and investigated those, they did not find any evidence of a true landslide. So again, those were just more of the topographical indicators of a landslide, but not necessarily true landslides.
So who did those borings? Our city
They
consultant
yeah,
or
they
the
were-
applicants? Which one?
Right, they were done by the applicant and then peer reviewed by our consultant.
I see. Okay. So this is more a question for Michael, I think. You know, we've seen things like the Millennium Tower where the residents, they sue everyone. They sue the builder, they sue the city. You shouldn't have approved it. They suing the because of the adjacent bus terminal. They said that that building undermined it. So what is our liability when we approve these hillside exceptions if something happens in the future? Do we have like any indemnification, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have an indemnification agreement with the developer.
And point of clarification on that poor landslides, from my recollection reading the reports, I believe the peer review asked for the borings, and the borings clarified and showed that within the boundaries of the proposed construction, there was no landslide, but there were still what were 4 landslides within the perimeter of the property. Was that
Right, I'll clarify that I was speaking to the developed area. Further down, I believe there were indications of landslide. That's not necessarily where this is going to be disturbing, though.
And the approximate timelines of these landslides from the geotech report appeared to be the first one seemed to not have a timeline from my reading of it. Was that correct?
I would have to go back and reference those,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, it would have been nice to have the civil engineer or the geotech engineer present for this hearing. I guess as a point of clarification, if you have more questions for the engineer, how do we handle that for staff?
So, Chair, the disturbance of land that is going to occur is not within the boundaries of where the landslides were. This is limited to a certain portion of the property. The property is over 3 acres large. Portions of the property are definitely much steeper than where this development is proposed. And prior to any building permits being issued, there will be additional investigation and additional review of the foundation and the plans that are proposed for construction. So at this point, based on the information that we have as staff, we fully recommend approval of this project as proposed, because all of those recommendations that our peer reviewer has asked us to incorporate in the project, we are incorporating those, and we will make sure that the applicant will comply with them.
Okay, very good.
And like I said, this is a pretty normal project on hillside property. 22 of the 23 residential lots in this subdivision have been developed, and several with steeper slopes.
Thank you, you. And just to clarify that, of the 22 of 23 that were developed, if I understood the comment previously, 20 of the 22 were before the RHS and the hillside exception requirement.
There were residential hillside standards in place.
Mm-hmm.
The hillside exception process just did not exist.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those building permits were reviewed and approved by staff, and none of those homes have gone anywhere yet.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Other questions? I want to, Vice Chair Kasol-Sharon?
Yes, I did want to confirm, if this helps Commissioner Scharf at all, that, you know, when I spoke with staff today, it sounded like none of the other homes in the area built on similar slopes have sustained any structural damage to date, correct? Yeah.
To our knowledge, yes, that's right.
Right.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Fong?
I'll go ahead and comment. I think, first of all, I think it's a very nice application. In particular, when we've seen hillside exceptions, one of the areas that often is controversial is when it is visible from the ridge line. That is not the case here, or at least according to the report, it's not the case here. So that there's no issue, and it wasn't a giant protruding house in any case. So I think it looks like a very good application. It is difficult to build on slanted ground. People do that. So I feel like the level of reports and the level of due diligence has been done looks sufficient here that it has my full approval. And I'll comment as well on the planting plans. If my mom has passed away, but if she heard that you were putting bread trees there, she would have given you an extra point. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fong. Other comments?
Yeah, I did want to confirm for Commissioner Fung, when I visited the site today, the property is definitely not facing externally Cupertino downtown, so it is very nestled in, and it shouldn't be impeding upon anyone's views. It's not along the ridgeline. And there is community support, as we've received through email. Sounds like the resident HOA supports it very much, and they also will be contributing to the BMR fund, which is nice. So, from my end, I also am supportive of this.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Vice Chair. Other questions or comments from anyone else? And just to clarify, I had one other question. I was looking at Appendix F in the general plan, which I believe I did reach out to staff about before. And Appendix F in the general plan looks at the slope percentages and the DU per acre and acre per DU. And looking at, first of all, the 45% slope, there was no entries for that. But if I look at the 43% slope, it had 1 DU for 4.94 acres, and the lot is at 3.04 acres. So would staff like to comment on that?
So we evaluate residential yield when subdivision occurs. And like I mentioned, this subdivision, while it did occur back in 1979, those standards were still in place. And like I mentioned, this is a 24-lot subdivision. However, there were only 23 residential lots. There is one open space lot that is part of this development. And when you look at what was originally subdivided, that math would have been done then, at that point. So while the lot itself is slightly under that acreage, it was part of that subdivision. A home was contemplated on this particular lot.
And so if we applied today's standards and this were a new subdivision that we're forming, would it be fair to say that on a 3.04 acre lot at 45%, we could not accommodate one dwelling unit?
If the size of the subdivision was 3.84 acres, or the acreage of this one lot, potentially not. But if you were to contemplate the entire 24-lot subdivision, we might come out with the same yield.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other thoughts from other commissioners? Okay, if none, then let's vote.
Are we?
The motion carries with Commissioner Linskog absent.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Thank you for that. Staff, appreciate all the work that staff did on this and appreciate all the support leading up to the meeting and all of the questions. So with that, I think we are moving on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 3, I believe. Agenda item 3 is a use permit modification, architectural and site approval, and tree removal permit for the construction of a 275 crypt garden mausoleum and removal and replacement of up to 5 development trees. The application number is M2024-002, ASA 2024-002, and TR 2024-023. The applicant is the Gates of Heaven Cemetery, located at 22557 Cristo del Rey, APN 342-63002. So with that, I'd like to firstly open the public hearing and then see if there's any ex parte communications from any of the commissioners.
I visited the site today, but I did not talk to anybody from the cemetery.
I also visited the cemetery over the weekend.
Thank you, Commissioner Scharf and Fung. Okay, very good. Okay, with that, let's open it up for the public hearing, and if we can have a staff report, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Rao. I will actually turn it over to John Martir, Senior Planner, who will be presenting on this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Rao, and fellow commissioners, and the Cupertino public at large. John Martir, Senior Planner, Community Development Department of the City of Cupertino. Yes, this is the application with the Gate of Heaven for the Gate of Heaven Cemetery, and as the chair had described these application numbers, I'll just move on to the subject. And again, this is a use permit modification, architectural site approval and tree removal permit for the construction of a 275 crypt garden mausoleum and removal and replacement of 5 development trees. And the applicant is the Gate of Heaven Cemetery, which the applicants are in the chamber right now. A little bit about the background. The Gate of Heaven Cemetery is about 58-acre site on the western side of the city that runs adjacent to Rancho San Antonio County Park, as well as the Oak Valley subdivision and the PG&E substation. And you can see in this aerial the boundaries of the cemetery highlighted in, I guess that's teal. It was approved in 1962 when this location was within the county's jurisdiction. It was annexed into the city in 1986. Memorial Park, it was approved primarily as a memorial park with flat horizontal markers, although throughout the years, whether they were unincorporated or within the city, various mausolea, going back to my Latin roots, mausolea were approved throughout the development. Primarily, you can see in this area right here the mausoleo, which we'll talk about more later on in this discussion, as well as various statuary and whatnot. The application request is to add a new garden mausoleum that's approximately 3,400 square feet and has about 275 crypts with this, as well as around 240 niches which contain urns for those who choose to be cremated in the afterlife. You can see this mausoleum right here, and we'll go to a more zoomed in site plan in the next slide. And to accommodate this, they'll be replaced with the 5 European white birch trees in that location. And it's adjacent to existing approximately 37,000 square foot mausolea and chapel. As you can see, here's a zoomed in version right here. As you can see, here's the proposed mausoleum with the other mausolea surrounding it with the chapel right here. This green circle pretty much shows where the 5 European white birch trees are currently located. So again, going further in the application request, in prior approvals for modifications to the use permit, staff had taken consideration location of certain non-flat markers on the site in terms of their distance from single-family residential properties that surround wherever these non-markers are going to be located. In this case, the measurement includes about 760 feet at its closest point to the nearest single-family residential unit in the Oak Valley development. Architecturally, the cemetery wanted to match the other mausolea, so with around 20 feet tall, Spanish style orange tile roofs with wooden arcades jutting out from the base about 11 feet to protect those observing or visiting relatives or friends to be shaded from the sun and basically the elements. And here's the 5 European white birch trees that are adjacent to one in the mausoleum on the side. There is one modification to the use permit, draft use permit resolution. The condition, I say it's currently condition 5, it should be condition 6. The modification should read a modification is approved as a title, 3,400 square foot mausoleum allowing up to 275 crypts and 224 niches. Environmental review. This project is categorically exempt from the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, per sections 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. The recommended actions, the Planning Commission adopt the proposed draft resolutions to 1, find the project exempt from CEQA and approve the use permit modification. 2, approve the architectural site approval permit. And 3, approve the tree removal permit. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, so with that, if we have any questions of staff.
Does the applicant have a presentation, or is the applicant here?
No, it's fairly self-explanatory.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
I did have a question for the applicant. Was there, what was the notification process for, existing families who have loved ones at the cemetery who might be either near the structure or somewhat close to it?
There's no burials by the structure.
Right.
So there's only mausolea by the structure. And there's no reason there's part of the expansion of the cemetery around them. And we're 20 feet from the building, so we're nicely not close up to them. So we have not heard anything from current people. So.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
No, I mean, I visited the site, and yeah, I saw the 5 trees, which is disappointing, but they're going to be replaced. So I didn't see any problem with this application.
And as a clarifying question to staff, we will require tree replacements in like or equal number. And any comments you would like to add on the tree replacement plan?
Sure. So the municipal code allows for trees of this size to be replaced with like for like, not like for like, but 1-to-1 at 24-inch box ratio.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions? Okay, if none, let's go to public comment. If we have members of the public that would like to comment. Madam City Clerk.
We have 1 speaker card in person and 1 hand raised on Zoom. Our first speaker is Jennifer Griffin. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Planning Commission. I'm always glad to see that there is such good care taken of Gate of Heaven. My father-in-law is there. He passed away 10 years ago. He is in the veterans section in a crypt as you come in. We go up weekly. My mother-in-law, my husband's stepmother, yes, his mother passed away, but there is a stepmother, and she goes like 2 times a week. And it's, for us, especially during COVID, it was very comforting to go up there. There's a lot of memories I found out recently that my very close friend from high school passed away in 2000. Her entire family is in one of the crypt areas. I have not found it yet because I just found out that she and her sister had passed. It's been very upsetting. I'm very grateful that the cemetery is kept to be as peaceful and beautiful as it is. I recently, about 2 years ago, in the veterans section, the crypt area, there was a giant expansion that happened. Now we have a giant guardian angel that appeared there. We're very happy to have her. But when you have families going up regularly, when you start having construction, as happened in the veterans crypt area, memorial area, it was quite upsetting to some extent because every time we went up there, we didn't know what was being built. The final project, it was helpful that it looks something like the original section, and you can still see where people are going to be putting flowers, etc. But I appreciate the fact that if they are adding a crypt area there, that they're trying to make it look like the other section. It's, I don't know how to explain this, but when you're going, people find solace in different ways, and there are a lot of things that happened where going to a place like this gives you a great deal of strength. And in my life, in the last several years, especially when my brother passed, he passed shortly after my father-in-law did. It helped me a great deal being able to go there and feel a sense of renewal, especially during the pandemic. We were able to go up there. So I applaud anything that can be done to try to make this area stay as peaceful as possible. There is a large tree that was damaged a year ago adjacent to the Veterans Crypt, so be mindful that trees can be damaged. Thank you.
We have one hand raised on Zoom. Lisa?
Welcome, Lisa.
Welcome, Lisa.
Hi. So I had sent a hurried email to all of you today. Regardless of the size of the tree replacement, the trees that need to be replaced, I would hope that the applicant may be willing to put in larger trees, because those are pretty big trees, and 24-inch box trees sound big, but they really are not. And I think I heard John say that they were going to replace by the same species. I was multitasking, so I'm not sure that's what you said, John. But birch trees need to be planted in a certain way to be successful in their growth, and it takes them a long time to grow, as far as I remember. So that would be a request of mine, to ask if the applicant is willing to do that, go above what is required, and maybe in the number of trees, I don't know, but that's a big open space that people do enjoy being outside, doing what they're doing there. And of course, the loss of trees is not good, and if you can embellish that, even better. More power to it and everyone else, I guess. And I would like to comment that I'm grateful that this isn't as horrific as what was being proposed and actually built without permission a few years ago. So there's progress being made there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Madam City Clerk, any more public comments?
I have no speaker cards, and I see no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. So with that, we will invite the applicant if you have any further comments to add.
I'd just like to go about the trees. We actually, cemeteries plant more trees than take out trees. This site, we're actually very cautious about putting too many trees in because it is a melancholic, grassy area. And just by the way, I've been working at the cemetery for 29 years, and it's my favorite cemetery because it is a beautiful space to come into. That's why we decided to do the mausoleum the same as the existing mausoleums. The other mausoleum that was there was 1998. Actually, I did that one too, which we decided not to match my mausoleum, match the other mausoleum. So, but we are proactive about planting trees to make sure it's a nice place to be. So.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing, and for the purpose of a discussion, may we have a motion, please? I'm happy to move the staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Fong. So we have a motion, we have a second, so we can open it up for discussion. If commissioners would like to ask any questions or share your thoughts.
I just appreciate what one of the speakers said regarding what came before us a few years ago. This is a much more acceptable project, and I would support it.
I'll comment. It seems like the proposal's in good order. It makes sense. I think that everything looks good. It's a very good report. I would actually, I wonder in some respects the usage here is exactly the approved use. An expansion of the approved use. It is well within the bounds of unlikely that there would be. They hardly have neighbors in the first place, but unlikely to be disturbance. So in some respects, we often talk about mechanisms through which we might streamline the process where it makes sense. And I would just say in this particular case, this was not a different usage, particularly around the fact it was not a different usage. That might be something to consider in the future for streamlining, making this, easy thing to do.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Fong. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, if there's no other comments and discussion, we have a motion, we have a second. Let's vote.
The motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Lindskog absent.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. With that, we will move on to the next agenda item. I believe we have no old business, we have no new business. Is there a staff report?
The only report that I would like to make is, as you know, Chair, we talked about the conference that we had hoped that the commissioners could make it to. We were unable to get you guys in. So we are hoping and we're working towards training for the commission at the next meeting. So we'll see if we can pull it all together. And as we discussed, Chair, it would likely be a special meeting that will begin at 6 p.m. but on the same day as the 25th. And we will definitely be confirming all of that information. So more to come.
Thank you. Appreciate staff going the extra mile and setting this up for the commissioners, and I'm sure it will make us a better commission for the result of it. So thank you for that. Are there any commission reports? Hey, no commission reports, and we're done with the staff reports. Let's move on to the next item, which is future agenda setting. I believe it's a good lead-in from the previous discussion PO just shared, which is 6:25. I believe we have a training item coming up on 6:25. Would staff like to comment on the Westport item that was postponed, and if there's any guidance to commissioners on when that might be coming up?
No.
Okay. All right.
There will be noticing, and we will definitely let the commission know when it's ready to be agendized.
Okay, very good. So with that, then, are there any future agenda items from commissioners that you would like to propose?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we already mentioned this one, but I would like to look at, with AB 2097, we want to be sure that a developer is not expecting that street parking would be the replacement for their lack of parking. So we might want to look at permit parking programs and how we implement those.
If you might summarize for the purpose of a future agenda item, what would you call that? And staff, you're welcome to chip in if you have.
Permit parking.
So certainly something that the commissioners may consider, but I did want to point out that permit parking is in the public right-of-way, and it would not be in the purview of the Planning Commission, but most likely the purview of Public Works and the City Council.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do want to keep this brief and not go into discussions, but we'll. Any other future agenda items that commissioners would like to suggest?
Oh, I just wonder what's happening with the movement towards the subcommittees.
Yes, I believe we have a future agenda backlog that staff and chair will work through, and we will look at prioritizing the same. And I believe we also have a full agenda in front of us with the training coming up, and then Westport, and we have other ODS-related agenda items. So yes, we have a backlog, and the backlog's growing. All right, if going once, going twice, no other future agenda items. Okay, very good. So I think with that, we are at the end of the meeting, and we are adjourned. Thank you.